Picture two people, both 45. One moves through the day loose and easy, heals fast, skin still holds its bounce. The other feels stiff getting out of a chair, catches colds that linger, notices new wrinkles every few months. Same birth year, same number of trips around the sun, but their bodies are clearly not running on the same clock. Maybe you've felt this yourself, comparing your knees to a sibling's, or noticing old photos where you look years younger than you feel today. So what actually decides how fast a body ages, if it's not just the calendar? The answer is hiding inside your cells, in something scientists call zombie cells. And once you understand what they're doing, aging stops feeling random. Because here's the strange part. You could run a blood test on that stiff, worn-down 45-year-old, and everything might look technically fine. No disease, no diagnosis, nothing a doctor would flag, and yet something is clearly different in how their body is running. That gap, between feeling fine on paper and feeling off in real life, is exactly where this mystery lives. Something invisible is setting the pace of aging, quietly, underneath everything you can see in the mirror. It starts small, almost boringly small. A bad week of sleep. A stretch of deadlines that keeps your shoulders tight and your jaw clenched. A few months where the gym bag just sits in the corner. None of that feels like an aging event. It feels like normal life. But at the cellular level, normal life is exactly where this story begins. Every one of those ordinary stressors, poor sleep, chronic tension, sitting too much, puts a small amount of wear on your cells. Usually that's fine. Your body has a built-in system for this. Damaged cells are supposed to either repair themselves or die on command, quietly, efficiently, making room for fresh ones. Think of it like a factory with a strict quality control line. Defective parts get pulled and scrapped immediately, but some damaged cells don't follow the script. Instead of repairing or dying, they get stuck. They stop dividing, stop functioning properly, but they don't disappear either. They just sit there, in your joint tissue, in your skin, in your blood vessels, refusing to leave. Scientists call this cellular senescence, but the far more useful mental image is a zombie cell, not alive in any useful sense, not dead either, just lingering, taking up space, doing nothing productive. And this is the piece almost nobody realizes is happening inside their own body right now, quietly, invisibly, regardless of how old their birth certificate says they are. Here's where it gets stranger. These zombie cells are not passive. They don't just sit quietly in the corner and wait to be cleaned up. They actively broadcast. They release a steady stream of inflammatory chemical signals into the surrounding tissue, almost like a malfunctioning smoke alarm that won't stop beeping even though there's no fire anymore. One zombie cell alone barely matters, but zombie cells rarely stay alone. Once enough of them accumulate in one area, that constant low-level chemical noise starts to add up into something your body actually feels. This is likely the missing piece behind a symptom so many people brush off. Chronic low-grade fatigue with no clear illness behind it. You go to the doctor, blood work comes back normal. No infection, no obvious disease, nothing to name and treat. And yet you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fully fix. That mismatch, feeling off while testing fine, often lines up with exactly this kind of quiet inflammatory static running in the background. In fact, doctors can sometimes see hints of this directly. Blood markers of inflammation can run elevated in someone who insists they feel completely fine, because the zombie cells causing that inflammation don't announce themselves with an obvious illness. They just hum along under the surface. Now, here's something important. This alarm system isn't a design flaw. It's not your body malfunctioning out of nowhere. Cellular senescence originally evolved as a short-term safety measure, a way to quickly quarantine a damaged or potentially dangerous cell so it can't cause bigger problems, like uncontrolled growth. For most of human history, that containment was temporary. The immune system would eventually clear these flagged cells out, the way security would eventually escort a suspicious visitor off the premises. The system was built for occasional short-term use. It was never designed to run continuously for decades. But modern life, with its chronic sleep debt, chronic stress, and chronic sitting, keeps generating new damaged cells faster than the body can clear the old ones. The alarm system that was meant to sound briefly ends up stuck in the on position for years. And where these zombie cells settle in matters just as much as how many there are. This is why aging doesn't show up as one uniform thing. It shows up as scattered specific complaints, depending on which tissue is carrying the heaviest load. Pile up in the cartilage and connective tissue around joints, and you get stiffness that seems disproportionate for someone's age, an ache getting out of a chair that a same-age friend simply doesn't have. Pile up in the skin, and collagen support weakens, which is part of why skin can lose elasticity and heal noticeably slower after a cut or a sunburn than it used to. Pile up around muscle tissue, and recovery after a workout or even a minor injury starts dragging out longer than it should, compared to someone the exact same age who bounces back within a day or two. Even the brain isn't immune to this static. After a single rough night of sleep, most people expect to feel groggy, but if the surrounding tissue is already carrying a heavier zombie cell load, that grogginess can linger longer and hit harder, showing up as brain fog that doesn't clear by mid-morning the way it used to. The recovery lag isn't random, it's downstream of the same inflammatory noise happening elsewhere in the body. This is also the piece that explains the sibling puzzle. The two people, same birth year, aging on visibly different timelines. One rough night, one stressful week, one skipped workout. None of that determines anything on its own. Cellular damage happens to everyone, and the body clears most of it just fine most of the time. What actually separates the person who feels sharp at 45 from the one who feels like they're pushing 60 is what happens over years of repeated, unrecovered stress. Every poor night of sleep, every extended stretch of chronic tension, every long spell of inactivity adds a little more damage than the body's clearance system can keep up with. It's not one bad week that ages a person. It's a slow, quiet accumulation, a kind of clearance debt building up in the background, tissue by tissue, year after year, long before it ever shows up in the mirror. Here's the part that actually changes how you should think about all of this. Your body was never left defenseless against zombie cells. It has an ongoing clearance system, immune cells, that patrol tissue specifically looking for these malfunctioning stragglers and removing them. That system runs every single day, quietly, in the background, whether you think about it or not. The real question was never whether your body can clear these cells. It's whether it's getting the conditions it needs to keep up with how fast new ones are forming. And that's actually good news, because it means the same mechanism that explains why one 45-year-old feels 60 also explains why the other one gets to feel 35. It's not a different body type. It's a different clearance rate, built up over thousands of ordinary days. So what actually tips the scale toward better clearance? Not a supplement stack, not a biohacking routine. The lowest friction lever is something almost disappointingly simple: consistent recovery. Specifically, protecting one fixed recovery window every day, the same way you'd protect a meeting you can't reschedule. That could mean anchoring a 7 to 8 hour sleep target and actually holding the line on it, even when the day tempts you to trade it away. Or if that feels too big to grab onto all at once, it can be smaller than that. A 10-minute screen-free wind down before bed, every night, no exceptions. Not because 10 minutes erases years of wear, but because consistency is what gives your body's clearance system a predictable window to do its quiet, unglamorous work instead of constantly playing catch-up. It helps to hold on to this reframe. Stiff joints, lingering fatigue, slower healing. These aren't proof that your body is failing you. They're closer to an alarm system that's been left running too long because it never got a break. That's a very different story than something is wrong with me, and it's a far more useful one because alarm systems can be given a chance to reset. That reframe alone tends to lower the quiet anxiety that creeps in when you notice these signs, and it redirects that energy somewhere more useful, toward the one habit that actually feeds the mechanism, instead of toward worry that doesn't. Now, here's what's worth paying attention to, without expecting a miracle. Over a week of steadier recovery, changes tend to surface first in small, almost forgettable moments. Getting out of bed and noticing your joints take a little less time to loosen up. Getting through a rough patch at work and noticing your brain fog clears a bit faster than it used to after a short night. These aren't dramatic transformations, and they're not guarantees. They're just small signals worth noticing, little data points from your own body that the clearance system is getting slightly better conditions to work with than it had before. Which brings us back to those two 45-year-olds. One loose and easy, healing fast, skin still holding its bounce. The other stiff, worn down, aging in ways that don't match the number on their birth certificate. It was never about luck. It was never some genetic lottery they had no say in. It came down to something quieter and far more ordinary: how many zombie cells their bodies have managed to clear out, night after night, year after year, long before either of them ever noticed a difference in the mirror. Tonight, you get one small vote in that ongoing process. Not a dramatic overhaul, not a new identity as a health optimizer, just one fixed recovery window, protected the same way tomorrow as you protect it tonight. That's the habit. That's the whole reset. Small, repeatable, and aimed directly at the one mechanism, quietly deciding how fast your body is aging, whether you've ever thought about it before or not.